film. All right. First off, you're going to see the test broken down in sections. So the first section you're going to come to is basically engine oil and engine oil service. The test will handle a couple of things. One of the things it's going to ask you is, does the filter, oil filter I'm speaking of, bypass 100% of the time, or does it filter 100% of the time, or does it bypass under certain conditions? What are those conditions it bypasses under? It bypasses under freezing cold weather. Your oil is not filtered at 0 degrees. Okay, it's just not. It can't. It's too thick. It won't go through that pleat, that cellulose pleat. Okay. The other thing is before installing the filter, we primed it. Priming the filter, does it increase or decrease the dry running time of the engine? It decreases it because it takes less time to fill the oil filter. The next thing I'm going to talk to you guys about is, can I mix a synthetic with an organic oil, motor oil? Can I mix a synthetic with an organic? The answer is yes. I can mix a synthetic oil with an organic oil. Now the question comes down to this. How's organic oil made? Well, basically it's made from fossilized fuels. Crude oil. That's how motor oil is made, out of crude oil. But synthetic oil, how's it made? Synthetic oil, it's a test question, is made out of natural gas. Natural gas is synthetic oil. When you're talking synthetic oils and you see a 0W20 or 0W whatever, is that going to be, what kind of oil is that? Synthetic. 0W something means synthetic. Alright. Can I mix a 1040 with a 1030 weight? The answer is absolutely not. I can't mix a 1040 with a 1030 because of this following analogy. I take a chain and I cut the links in the chain. And now they're all separate links together. I can put them in a smaller container, couldn't I? But if I reattached all the links together, right, it would be a bigger container, wouldn't it? Because the links would stack on top of each other, wouldn't they? It wouldn't really just fall to the bottom of the bowl. They would kind of stack on each other because they're connected. Do you understand that? Okay, so let's talk about this so you guys clearly understand it. Because nobody that I know of has ever had a good explanation as to what happens when you mix a 1030 with a 1040 or a 20 weight with a multi-viscosity with all-season oil. What does happen? So what happens is in the all-season oils, the 10W30s, they have what's called polymer chains. These polymer chains link together like this when the oil gets hot. So when they link together, it's like that chain taking up more space. And because the all-season oil has polymer chains that link together during the time the oil is hot, it causes more space to be filled in where the metal could be rubbing on metal. It's now no longer rubbing on metal. It's on a hydrostatic wedge, or it's on an oil hydraulic wedge. Metal is not touching metal anymore. It's being cushioned by the oil because of the way the polymers hook up when the oil gets hotter. When it cools down, the chains break away, and now the oil takes up less space. Yes, the oil is thicker, but it's not taking up as much space. So, what's the point? The point is under all weather conditions, temperature ranges, it flows through the engine at about the same rate at all temperature conditions, creating your all-season oil. What does the W mean? Winter grade. It's a winter grade oil. Not 10W30, it's the weight. That's not what it is. It's a winter grade, aka all-season motor oil. Okay? Does everybody totally understand that? Moving on with this oil. Oops. I want to move on. Let's see. What about motor flushes? How do you guys feel about a motor flush? I've talked to you a ton of times on that. Is it okay to do an engine, motor oil, motor flush? Okay, the reason is because it rips and cleans all the deposits that are in the engine, the sides, on the rocker valley, on the piston connecting rods, on the camshaft followers, all through the engine, all that sludge, not all of it, most of it goes to the bottom of the oil pan and it plugs up the oil pump. Do you remember that screen that I showed you guys? That's why the motor flushes should not be used. It's okay to use a Rizlone engine additive, motor oil additive, that does clean up the engine, but not a motor flush. Don't ever use a motor flush. All right. Moving on, 3-second rule, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. After the oil's been changed, you count your Mississippi counts. When you get to 6 Mississippi, you better start thinking about shutting off that motor, because by the time you get to 8 Mississippi, your motor's going to probably burn up. Or it may have some damage done to it. So, what happens if you get to 6 Mississippi and no oil light goes off, or the pressure gauge doesn't come off? Shut the engine off, wait 15 seconds to 30 seconds, and try starting it again. And count your Mississippis again. Get up to 6 Mississippi, shut it off, and wait 15, 30 seconds, start it again. Are we clear on all that? Okay. Is it normal for filters to bypass during normal engine operating conditions? That's one of the test questions. I want you to think about it. Okay. Moving on. What is the proper battery testing voltage? Who can tell me? 12.6 is exactly right. That's me taking a battery out of the car, putting it on the ground, nothing's connected to it, putting the probes on it, and it's 12.6 is perfect. That's what I'm talking about. What is the minimum charging voltage? 13.5. You're right. 13.5 is minimum. Maximum is 15.5. Between those two voltage ranges is where our alternators or generators need to be. Okay, the biggest problem in this class is the reserve cranking voltage test. What does that mean? During the time the engine is cranking over, I should have enough reserve voltage, electrical pressure in that battery to light off the ignition coils, light off the fuel injectors, the computer, the accessories, and all the other things that the car requires to turn on. Guess what? I need to have minimum cranking voltage of 9.6. If I don't have it, may not start. Heber City at 0 degrees, we should have 10. But 9.6 is the answer to the question. Okay. Evaluating a battery. Let's say I got a battery for sale that has 800 cold cranking amps at 32 degrees. Another one's for sale at 800 cold cranking amps at 32 degrees, or at 0 degrees. Which one's the better battery? 0 degrees. Because the one at 800 cold cranking amps at 0 degrees is more likely to be 1,000 cold cranking amps at 32 degrees. So the colder the battery gets, the colder it gets, the less it can put out. Now, when does a battery freeze? It freezes when it is discharged. It turns into water inside that battery. Instead of sulfuric acid, which a charged battery will have, it's water. When I charge it, it turns into sulfuric acid. But if I let it run down and it go in my house and it gets 20 below zero that night, and that battery's casing is cracked because it was discharged, that's because there was water in the battery, and water expands when it freezes. Okay. Moving on, tire service. Are we okay with the formula on tires? We're okay with the date on tires. We know what the date means, okay? We're okay with raising the vehicle. We know the button brings it up, the lever right below the button brings it down, and the lever on the opposite side of the button is the release lever. You have to go up, release, and then both handles go in to bring it down, okay? Moving on, a couple other things. Let's see. When securing a tire on the tire machine, technician A says the first pedal on the right is used. Is that correct? To secure the tire down on the machine, do I use the first pedal? What pedal do I use? There is no middle one. Third one is the correct answer. That's the rim clamp. The first one is what? Turntable. It does both ways. Lift it up, goes counterclockwise. Push it down, goes clockwise. Okay. The second pedal is the bead breaker. It's the bead breaker. The third pedal, obviously the rim clamp. Fourth pedal is the air filler. Slam it down harder, the bead blaster. Okay? It's the little cheetah built inside the time machine. Okay, moving on a little bit. Let's see. Okay, what is the purpose of a transmission? What's its job? Multiplies torque. That's it. Okay. We're going to go over with the video camera here in a minute. We're going to go through the powertrain assembly so we know what's going on right there. Let's see. Let me think of a couple. Okay, fuel octane. The higher the octane, what? Slower the burn, cooler the burn, and more heat it takes to light the fuel vapors off. Slower, cooler, longer, more heat to light the vapors off. Regular low-octane gas, quicker the burn, less heat needed to light the fuel off, shorter the burn, right? And hotter the burn. It burns hotter. So you couldn't put regular in a high compression racing mode. Why? Because it's too hot. And the heat's generated with high compression, so it would detonate before the spark plug could fire it off. Now you got an explosion going down and a piston going up. Is that going to be a problem? Yeah, it's called detonation. Piston, hole in the piston. Okay. Toe in on tires, toe out. Caster is side-to-side alignment. Actually, it's side-to-side geometric alignment. So the tires are going to pitch to the side, okay? But I don't want to complicate it for you guys. So caster, the friendly ghost, side-to-side alignment. Camber, positive camber is away from the engine. Negative camber is towards the engine block. Okay? Toe in, toe out. Toe in, toe out. Ball joints are pivot points. Tie rod ends push and pull the tie rod from left to right. All right? Okay. Two types of steering mechanisms, rack and pinion, steering box. Okay, steering box, rack and pinion. Okay, moving on a little bit more. Let's see, you know what section width is, you know what aspect ratio is, you know what all that is. Now, the next thing I'm going to ask you guys is, what way do I turn that handle to lower the floor jack? Which way do I turn the handle to lower this floor jack?
Left.
Yeah, to the left. I turn it to the left and it goes down. Okay? Turn it to the right, it goes up. So there's the left and there's the right. Okay, so are we good with that, everybody? Okay, this is the floor jack. We understand that. Why do we roll our window down when we pull a car in here?